Clorinde is finally here, and today I will give you all the information necessary to build and play her correctly. I will also share a redemption code that was given by Hoyoverse that will help you max her out a little bit. Clorinde is an Electro Sword user. She's an attack scaler with a Bond of Life mechanics and a crit rate Ascension stat. Her main and basically only use is as an on-field damage dealer, and her skill is the main focus of her kit. Using it will convert her attacks to Electro. To raise her language down her skill descriptions, basically normal attacks after her skill are now pistol shots. They increase her Bond of Life by 35% of her max HP and deal extra damage. But once over 100% Bond of Life, so after 3 attacks, she stops doing extra damage. We can press her skill again to perform a sword attack that deals even stronger normal attack damage and heals her, consuming the bond. She can now start farming the bond again with her normals. She will basically do skill, 3 normals, skill, 3 normals in a loop to maintain damage, alternating 3 pistol shots and 1 sword attack. The elemental burst grants her a head start by granting a bond of life, so that she can cast her skill twice, consuming her bond faster and dealing extra damage. The bond of life value does not matter that much. It only matters if it's below or above 100%, which is dead in the middle of the HP bar. Below means spamming normals and above means pressing her skill. Keep in mind that all the damage we do, even when we repress the skill, will still be counted as normal attack damage. This will be important later. You will most of the time either burst, skill twice, 3 normals into skilled repeated, or activate their skill, 3 normals into skilled repeated. Here's a chart you can look for extra details on the skill's attacks. Lastly, during the stance granted by her skill, she will not be able to do charge attacks and healing will not clear a bond of life, but instead increase it, based on how much she got healed. This is the only way to really change how you play her, as getting healed enough might enable you to press your skill faster. Imagine doing 2 normals and being at 70% bond of life. Getting healed here might make her want to skip the 3rd normal and press her skill again. But outside of this example, which requires a pretty strong healer, you will stick to 3 normals into skill most of the time. The skill has a 7.5 second duration and 16 seconds of cooldown. You will be able to do 3 normals into skill combo 5 times if done fast enough. Clorinde's 2 Ascension Passives both boost her damage. Ascension 1 will increase the damage of her normals and burst with 3 stacks, each gained when anyone in the party triggers an Electro-related reaction. The boost is based on her attack and it caps out at 3000 attack. As we will see in her building section, this is a massive boost to her damage and almost doubles her original multipliers. It's important to chase but not mandatory to cap out. It also includes every and any Electro reactions, so it's pretty easy to use. Her Ascension 4 will be activated past 100 Bond of Life and give her a crit rate boost when her Bond of Life value changes. 2 stacks of 10% crit rate each. This will also add even more Bond of Life from heals that happens during her skill. And it's basically a permanent 20% crit rate boost after the first combo. Talent priority is simple enough since her skill includes the real multipliers of her Electro-infused attacks, meaning that the normal attack talent should be left at level 1. Skill has the priority over burst, but it's fair to level up both. One thing I want to point out, however, is the fact that the bond given by her burst scales with talent levels, so to allow the burst into skill combo, you will want your burst to be at least level 7. And before continuing, make sure to redeem the code you see on screen. If you want to copy and paste it, you can find it in the description or comment section as well. Now, as far as your build goes, let's look at stats first. Main stats you should pick are attack or elemental mastery on the Sense, Electro Goblet and Crit Circlet, like many other attack scalers. The Sense is going to be attack most of the time, but in certain danger teams, especially if she's involved in Hyperbloom reactions, elemental mastery can be used as well. But even in quicken teams, often attack will still account for most of her damage thanks to her Ascension 1. Do note that getting to 3000 attack can be considered a sort of soft cap, but also keep in mind that she only really cares about elemental mastery when she's in a danger team. Goblets will rarely sway away from Electro damage, as its value in quicken teams is very high, and other teams generally manage to gather enough attack buffs anyway. A Circlet will tend to depend on your overall stats, but it's also more likely to be crit damage in her case. She has a 20% crit rate boost in her kit and 19 more from her Ascension stat. Substats are going to be very reflective of your main stats, so crit is the priority over attack generally. Elemental Mastery can be used in danger teams, energy recharge has value, but often building towards it too heavily is not worth it. We can now look at artifact sets. She can use quite a few sets, but as you might have guessed, her best in slot most of the time is going to be the new Bond of Life set. Her Bond of Life is stacked very fast, and stats given by this set are simply the highest you can get. However, this set is only used by Arlecchino, it's very recent, and it's coupled with a set that pretty much doesn't have big uses right now. A set that could rival it in a particular scenario is Thundering Fury. The set is very old and to be honest doesn't have that many uses, but her downtime turns out to be quite big with 16 seconds of cooldown and only 7.5 spent attacking. It can decrease your downtime by quite a bit, making it a very viable option since Clorinde's team obviously want her to be on field as much as possible. It will mostly be used in their teams as it's less reliable in Overload or Electrocharge teams. The cooldown reduction is not all that it does, as it also buffs the damage of the reactions. Basically, Whimsy allows more personal damage, while TF will always result in less damage, but with the ability to just do it more often. Results will highly vary depending on what teammates you pair her with and how much time it takes to clear whatever you're facing. If you can one-rotate an Abyss Chamber with Whimsy, you have no reason to look at TF. If it takes more rotations, however, TF might even surpass Whimsy, but only given supports that have a shorter on-field window. But still, I would only recommend you to try TF if you already have a good set, and not just go farm or strongbox for it. But these are not all. As a normal attack spamming character, there are a ton of other options. Just like Arlecchino, Gladiator becomes a really good option for older accounts that did not farm Whimsy. It just offers everything you need, just not as much as other sets. Echoes is good, but it always has a ping issue because the higher it is, the less chances to actually trigger its passive. Shimenawa reduces your burst up time and doesn't allow you to burst into skill, which means delaying it to the end of her DPS window. Her teams can definitely accommodate a lot of energy generation, especially when Fisher is present, so it's not a bad option at all. Gilded, Desert Pavilion, Thundersuiter can possibly still outperform 2-piece plus 2-piece options, but at this point you can use Rainbow Pieces as they likely have better stats. Marechaussee is actually very competitive and a great option, but it will require Furina and it will give you a bunch of crit rate that will basically make any crit rate weapon unusable. Remember that she starts off with 43% crit rate and Marechaussee will push it to 80, leaving you very little room to include useful stats without having too much. For the weapons, here's a chart that shows all the most common choices in an Aggravate team, done by a friend and member of my community. Always keep in mind that these are not absolute and might change depending on the exact team and reactions being done. One thing we can see across most scenarios, however, is how close her signature weapon Absolution is to 5-star options like Haran and Missplitter. And another important thing to notice is that the Fontaine Craftable, Finale of the Deep, is also basically her best 4-star option. It offers Stones of Attack, a 25% Bond of Life, and it's very synergistic with her, wanting just a skill used to activate, which is what Clorinde is going to do anyway. Anything that works with Elemental Mastery works a little less well in teams that don't include Dendro. The same things we said for her stats apply here. Let's talk about teams. Given a standard internal cooldown on her Electro application, we can notice that in a Quicken team, a classic rotation will see a total of 23 hits without reactions and 12 aggravates, making Quicken teams really great for her and Elemental Mastery buffs or substats increase in value. Keep in mind that aggravate damage is calculated in a way that incentivizes not only Elemental Mastery, but even more so damage percentage buffs and high crit values, which she definitely does not lack. Including an Anemo unit for the Vanilla set might be the best way to push her damage to its limits, but keep in mind the usual problem of comps that include both Anemo and Dendro, which is the fact that Quicken acts as a Dendro aura and consumes Electro very easily, especially if strong and constant Dendro like Nahida is applied. These scenarios are still playable but require a proper rotation. And to sum it up, you want to make sure enough Electro is on the enemy before going in with the Anemo. Applying less Dendro, while also maybe covering a defensive utility, might be the best way to enjoy a Quicken team. The second Electro being official is not mandatory, but it really helps with damage, particle generation and Electro being applied, especially if she has her C6 on. We can add the Hydra to these teams so that Hyperbloom is also triggered. This, however, depending on the amount of Hydra applied, will decrease how many aggravate reactions are going to be present. This is also the best scenario for Elemental Mastery main stats or weapons to shine. If the Hydra chosen ends up being Furina, you are in for a nice bonus, as Furina's burst not only increases damage percentage, but also healing bonus, and interacts with Clorinde's healing in a bit of a unique way. Since Clorinde heals 110% of her current Bond of Life, the actual amount of healing is pretty high, as it needs to cover the Bond of Life first and then give her some more. This means that any healing bonus given to Clorinde doesn't just increase that 10% of healing she would actually get, but it would apply to the entire heal. With a maxed out buff, a C0 Furina will make Clorinde heal for almost half of her total HP, on top of the bond instead of just 10%. One more thing I think might be really strong with Clorinde is Shiver's Overload, but these teams are a bit more dangerous to build. Not only as it's a bit harder to manage her short on field time, but also because we potentially get tons of attack buffs. Getting over 3000 attack does not stop your damage from going up, but it does stop her Ascension 1 passive, making it a less valuable stat when stacking buffs. A Bennett plus Shiver's team can easily reach that amount. Sometimes even Bennett by himself can do so. For reference, an R5 Finale of the Deep with a 2-piece attack bonus and an attack sense with 0 attack substats on your artifacts already has 2,400 attack. The same scenario with her signature weapon has almost 2000 attack. A good Bennett alone overcaps the Ascension passive here. And that brings us to teams like Hyper Clorinde, which I really don't like much. If Bennett alone can cap her Ascension 1, imagine adding Sarah. But again, capping her Ascension 1 does not mean she doesn't do more damage, but you're more incentivized to play different units or work with different builds. You can of course go wild and play many others, but I feel like they don't really push Clorinde's strength as much. Teaser teams or national teams or anything really you would play someone like Raiden are going to be alright. Always keep enough team abilities to cover her downtime. If you're looking to invest heavily into Clorinde, her Constellations are pretty strong but not insane. C1 will grant extra attacks, meaning chances to also trigger extra aggravates. This is already a great stopping point. C2 is basically a boost to her Ascension 1 plus resistance to interruption. Her plus 3 talent levels are not as important but still a damage increase. C4 boosts the strength of your burst and C6 is totally busted. It gives you a ton of crit value, up to 6 extra hits with good multipliers, 80% damage reduction and even more resistance to interruption. For non-wields that still want to give her as much as possible, after a good weapon option or her own, C1 is great. C2 is okay and everything up to C6 is just underwhelming. And don't get baited by the plus 3 levels on her skill at C3. This is not like Raiden. Most of Clorinde's damage is from Ascension 1, C1 or aggravate reactions, and none of these are boosted by C3. Thank you for watching so far. If you have a doubt, let me know in the comment section. Sub or like if you enjoyed this, stay tuned for more content, and if you want to hang out, come join us at twitch.tv/7evenplease.